What is it like having a relationship with a rich person? I have no idea myself, but my sister is married to a good dude who's doing very well. They are constantly traveling around the world and even own a yacht. Meanwhile, I haven't dated in ages and just waste my time playing video games. I have this roommate from high school who was raised up in a pretty wealthy family, and on his visit to me he asked me to accompany him for days in his luxurious suite and sharing the cost. I told him I was still a student, living a tight budget, and didn't have that much money to spend on this. He was indeed surprised, and couldn't understand why someone didn't even have the money to stay in a hotel. He probably had been working hard to understand what's happening in the lives of the poor, but at that moment I literally felt that our friendship was more like that of a nobleman and his not essential, accompanying servant. If they are really wealthy, yeah, I'd be surprised how superficial their relationships are with other wealthy people and just how normal that is. I thought Hollywood made that up for a trope, but no. It's all superficial, but they have this weird, almost familial obligation to maintain relationships with each other. And also there are quite a few wealthy people who live somewhat meagerly, but it's not like some poor person cosplay they pat themselves on the back for. They are either kinda stingy, or they just don't value materialistic things like that. I dated a girl with a very rich family right after college. It got kinda weird pretty quick. They liked and approved of me, and immediately started making plans for me. The mother offered me $5,000 to quit smoking cigarettes because she wanted boys, and smoking kills your male sperm count. I also had a lot of resentment come up, BC I grew up like stupid poor. They had different wings of a mansion and I grew up thinking people with a garage fridge were loaded. The amount of things they took for granted really got to me. The girl was great, but stepping into that world damn near gave me PTSD. If you're a poor person dating a rich person, it's kind of shitty. Makes you realize how disadvantaged you were your entire life, lol. It's like having an all-access pass to life's VIP section, but sometimes you find out it's overbooked with drama. Not me, but one of my friends is in an undefined sexual relationship with a rich guy. He offers to do a lot for her, but she's hesitant to accept any of it. The biggest thing she described to me is when they were getting intimate while she was on her period. She bled on his comforter that costs over $500 USD. She was extremely apologetic and wanted to try to clean it, but he insisted it was fine and that she relax. He said he could just replace it if it doesn't wash out later. It was shocking to her that anyone could shell out that much to replace something on a whim. I'm currently dating one and I made a post about it. It feels weird for me. She's able to buy things without a second thought. She tells stories about how she basically traveled the world while I only remained within the US. She'd been to Beyonce and Taylor Swift concerts and had front row tickets for both. We could be talking about going to an event or planning a trip. She'll be ready to purchase book everything right then and there. Whereas if it is me, I would need a couple days to sleep on it. I dated a guy who was living off a trust fund. We got along great on a personal level, but there was just such a gap in life experience. Like his family owned oceanfront property that was basically a mansion and summered there. He didn't understand that for normal people like me, just going to the beach at all was a special thing. He didn't understand why I couldn't just buy whatever I wanted if I wanted. That if I want something like a video game console I had to save and budget for it. That it was a really big decision. His job was basically just a hobby he did a few hours a week when he felt like it, so he had no concept of having to actually work for what you have. He would get a car, have it like a month then want and get a new one. But what became the biggest issue was the dynamic between what we could do for each other, which got really uncomfortable. He'd shower me with gifts and take me fancy places, and at first it was awesome, like being a VIP. But it quickly got overwhelming. And I felt really bad because I knew he was doing it out of love and didn't understand why it was making me so uncomfortable. I dated a guy who lives in a loft in East Village, Manhattan. His dad is a relatively known artist. When I visited him at his place, I had the impression that all New Yorkers live in huge spaces like this. His bedroom alone was twice the size of my entire apartment. He was very doting and would splurge on me, and we would stay in nice Airbnbs across NYC over the weekend too. But he didn't allow me to be fully myself, so that was the ultimate deal breaker. He still tried to reach out 7 years after we broke up, but not. I once dated a very wealthy Indonesian woman in Singapore. She had family wealth and was doing well for herself. It took some doing to establish boundaries on what I consider a reasonable place to go out. With time she did start enjoying more places of my choice, but eventually did revert to her preferred spots, which inevitably always were the top bars of the city. She on multiple occasions offered to pay for your share, which I took up only once. I also had to kinda get her into the habit of splitting the bill. She didn't pay her share when I paid nor asked me when she did. Also she paid very arbitrary amounts. All in all, we didn't work out for other reasons. But the difference in budgets played a role, and I now realize it was tad uncomfortable. Imagine the high school drama you saw and experienced. Ramp it up to 11. Then ramp it up again just for good measure. Wealthy people don't have the typical tripes of life to worry about, such as making rent or deciding which meal for the day they can afford. Hell, even compared to middle-class families, since middle-class families often have to still budget to ensure they stay at their level. Because wealthy people don't have real problems, they very often make up their own problems, which typically translates to drama between people. Sometimes it's outward loud drama, and you'll see folks get into a shouting match or something. But what's interesting is it's often much more subtle, and there's a lot of backstabbing. Dating someone wealthy will enable you to really unlock some amazing opportunities, but you'll have to learn how to deal with drama out the ass. You're also going to be considered an outsider, though they'll be kind to your face. If you're wondering why so many politicians come from wealthy families and how they're so good at being two-faced, it's because that's literally how most were raised to act. I don't know. Please supply me a rich person to date and I will do a scientific study. If you're rich and hot, let me know ASAP. I dated a very rich owner of a national aerospace heavy mining factory who tried to have absolute control over me and thought it was perfectly acceptable to drink himself unconscious in upscale hotel suites with me, and wet the bed, unfailingly. The third time this happened I ghosted him. For a few years he'd contact me on his birthday. Big nope on that one. My wife isn't rich, but her parents were millionaires at one point. Ironically, they were freaking leeches. They lived with us for the better part of the last 5 years, and every day for the first hour Mil was awake shit on our house. What she didn't like about it, thinking she's hearing stuff in the attic, feels like someone's watching her, someone's smoking. She railroaded every conversation my wife and I had, would constantly try and get me to do all her running for her. With them living with us, they never once helped with any utilities, not rent. Sometimes they'd pay for snacks, and that's about it unless it was their idea to get takeout, which I had to go get. One day they sent me to get Mexican food, and their card declined because my idiot brother-in-law drained their account with online purchases on a video game. Loki, she were kinda out of touch, and I had to explain the reality of how fortunate she is at finding gifts kinda got bad after a while. BC, even though I'm sure she was fine with anything, I always felt that she was expecting more. My brother married a spoiled princess with a super rich daddy. She's insufferable, and I have to watch as his in-laws buy him a house, a Tesla, take him on luxury month-long European cruises, and pretend I can stomach her presence when she barges into my house like she owns the place. She's always arguing with my mom because she thinks she should have the last word in everything. We're not technically dating, just getting to know one another. His mom was one of my country's minister and he was a diplomat to Europe. I don't speak fancy English and don't own any bachelor. He condemned my English, saying it's poor, it's basic and understandable. I remember he said I pronounced often incorrectly. I pronounce it with letter T, and he insisted it should be a fan. He also stressed me out that I need to be well educated if we were to be married, as I will be surrounded with diplomat's wife. We lasted 3 months. I've said this before. I was made to take off both mine and my son's shoes prior to entering his Range Rover. His car seat was on a towel top to bottom, and the seat belt was protected with a glove to stop the chair marking the belt, never mind the lecture of leather marking. Hence shoe removal. The front passenger seat just far enough away and the straps tight enough that he can't touch the front seat with his feet and scuff the fuck out of the leather. My son used to say, "Why do we have to take our shoes off in granddad's car, daddy?" Because he can't really afford to use it. It has to be preserved for when A, the finance company find it, B, forced to sell through other company debts, C, out of financial comfort, D, needs a new one because he has just fucked over another business individual. There's old money, new money, quiet luxury, etc. etc. Each has a very different profile. What's your definition of rich? If you want things to work out, you have to learn the arts of Zen and patience, so you can sit through the humble bragging sessions and snobby parties. The food is usually good wherever you go, though, so it's okay, I guess. My parents are the rich people though, so I can just get whatever I want at any time. Dated a rich guy once and it sucked. He wasn't used to being told no and acted like a baby when things didn't go his way. We went on a few trips which should have been great because I didn't have to pay for anything, but he always ended up ruining the vacation in some way. Anytime I disagreed with him on something, it would start a fight. The dumbest fights. He'd try to buy me stuff later to make up for it. It got old real fast. I'd rather work a 40-hour job that I hate than to ever spend another day with him. I'm in no way saying all rich men suck. I just got one of the crappy ones.